something which is impossible to see with the eyes. And whatever he wants, the universe has to make a plan to make it happen.
We felt loved by Swami Vishwananda.
This worry was over.
Yeah.
We always had enough food left.
Yeah. More than enough.
And I realized he was the voice I've heard in my head my whole life.
Jai Gurudev. I have one story which I would like to share. This happened in 2013. We went camping in Mauritius, and Guruji also came along. We went camping for 2 nights. And when we went behind in the backyard, Guruji saw a coconut. I mean, there were many coconut trees, but he saw one in particular. You know, he likes to eat in the coconut. He likes to eat the inside of the coconut, what we call in Creole, lekea coco, meaning it's like the heart, that thing that germinates inside the coconut. Obviously, you won't know that. You can't see that it's inside the coconut. You look at the trees, and then it pointed to me, this one. I said, first, I don't know how to climb a coconut tree. Secondly, I don't know how to cut a coconut. Then he shouted at me, you don't know how to cut a coconut? What kind of Mauritian are you? Everybody knows how to cut a coconut. And really, I didn't know how to cut. So, how to get that? He wants that, I don't know how to get him that. So he told me, okay, come, let's go close the door. So we went inside, we just closed the door. And all the coconuts from the tree fell. Brown. Everything, around 50 of them fell down. Not even one was left on the tree. All the coconuts fell. It was a huge noise. Imagine 50 coconuts falling at one go. It's a huge noise. And then he was pointing to one of the coconut. He said, okay, this one, cut it. I said, I don't know how to cut again. So I brought the knife and he cut it, and he found that exact thing that germinates inside the coconut. I guess you see here that something which is impossible to see with the eyes, he already knew it. And whatever he wants, you know, some way, somehow, the universe has to make a plan to make it happen. Because this is what he wants to happen. So he wanted to have his coconut, and he got his coconut.
We were invited to sing in Monaco for the darshan, and we were singing, and then on Sunday it was St. Clair's Day. And since we were traveling and singing for so many years, sort of like Franciscan inspired.
In churches.
In churches, on faith and trust. Like this was our path.
We asked, we put a little drum out if people wanted to put donations, and then we went and ate from it, or put it in a benzene in the car.
Right.
This was
was our life.
Our life unfolding.
So this time we were singing in Monaco, like one of the richest places on the planet. So we sang Dolce Sentiero.
Yeah, a song that Guruji always wants us to sing.
He loves that song.
It's a song of San Francis.
Right.
It's beautiful.
And then afterwards, there were no donations in this church.
No,
Yeah.
there was no donations. I don't know. We didn't go after it either. So
No.
we were like, okay. And so we went out
To the beach, I think.
Yeah, we went down to the beach.
And there
It
a
was
devotee comes from Guruji, from the darshan the day before.
We were just thinking of where and how to get food, and she said, oh, please come. In Nizza
There's a dinner for some devotees. So we come to Nice, to the address, and the house is full.
Yeah, absolutely packed.
Full. So they said, no, sorry, that doesn't work.
Sorry, it doesn't work. You can't come in. So we were like, oh. Okay. So we went down and we were
we were mostly sad that we couldn't have dinner with Guruji, of course.
Yeah, it was Guruji, the feeling to be with him, you know, and to have dinner with him is just something so special.
So we sat,
precious.
We walked down and we sat at the boardwalk.
So finally we decided, let's go to a pizzeria.
Let's see if there's a pizzeria. We can ask if
maybe
they can help us with a pizza or something.
Yeah.
But before we walk away, Swami Aniruddha, he plops his head over the balcony because they're just above us. So we couldn't hear them the whole time
being
up there.
happy and
you know,
loud and
we
talking.
sit down there alone and and he says, oh,
please wait.
Wait.
Guruji has something for you. And then he came after some minutes.
After some minutes, he comes down with this big
huge plate, this big, you know,
and he says,
full of food.
Here for you. Guruji handpicked every piece.
Every piece he took for you. Every piece.
And we were like,
personally for you. It's like,
we were
wow. we cried and we were just
Then
like...
we cried again out of gratitude.
Yeah,
You know.
we felt loved by
Right.
Swami Vishwananda. He cared for us very sweetly.
So sweetly.
And then
He looks over the balcony for a moment and says, "Oh,
how are you?
how you doing?" "Oh, we're fine, Guruji."
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And then he said something like, "Oh, you know, sometimes the love is easier felt on a distance." So
That
we
was
could
a
have this-
sentence that we kept inside for many situations later. Sometimes the love is felt better on a distance. Thank you, Guruji. So you stayed for a while, looked as we're eating, and yeah.
But the plate was a plastic plate.
Plastic plate, but we kept it.
Like a good plate. So we kept this plate, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it was sort of a good one-time plate, so they would have thrown it.
Yeah, it was very precious to us. It became really
Because it was
special.
like on St. Clair's Day, and so we kept this plate in memory of how our Gurudev is feeding us. So we
Story,
remembered the story
yeah.
from the Pandavas,
The
where
Pandava story.
Draupadi gets a pot because they're out in the woods and it's not easy to find food. But she got a pot who every day filled up, and everybody, whoever came, could eat from this pot, and it
It
didn't
was
finish
always enough.
until everybody had enough food.
And for us, it was like after this event, we always had enough food.
Sometimes it was a struggle, not because of the blessing of the Guru, but because of our minds.
Yeah, being
Worry.
in the way and the worry.
Right.
He always really told us not to worry. So
But after this
we had a good
moment,
practice.
we kept this plate back home, and it was as if this worry was over.
Yeah.
We always had enough food after that.
More than enough. Thank you, Guruji.
The way we connected was unusual because I had been on the path. I had learned 111 Kriyas from 2 different Paramahamsas. I wasn't really looking for a Satguru. I didn't even know what a Satguru was. And then I was abruptly kicked out of India, where I had been a sannyas for 3 years. And when I was kicked out, nobody in that sampradaya would respond to me or tell me what to do. So I returned to Canada, and out of the blue I was invited to go to Vancouver because Paramahamsa Vishwananda was coming for a visit to Canada, and I think it might have been his first visit. And it was an unplanned trip. Guruji just came right after the temple inauguration here at SPN, and as soon as he entered the airport, I felt like I was watching the sun walk into the room. And I stayed back because there was a dozen of his followers from America were there. But he looked around and he said, "Isn't anyone here from Canada?" And I said, "I am." He said, "Where?" And I said, "Calgary." And Rishi Shambhava was with him. And he sort of did a double take at me. And he later told me, "He's been looking for you for a year." I just sort of stumbled along with the group. The very first breakfast we went to, we were all sitting, and I had never been allowed to sit at the same table as the Guru. I was within India, so I was very nervous. I was trying to behave. Guruji looked at Tim, who's now Swami Sridhar from Hawaii, and he said, "Why don't you tell the group about your experience with Babaji?" And then in my head, I heard him say, "And then you tell your experience." And I looked down the table, and Guruji was staring at me with that stare he gives. And I realized he was the voice I've heard in my head my whole life. And I was shocked, because ever since I can remember, there's been this very quiet little voice that would show up in times of crisis, or show up when I really needed guidance. And it was just an inner voice. So I didn't know if you called it your higher self or what you called it, but to sit near Guruji and find out it was him put me on high alert. And later that day we started touring temples with him, and we went into a Buddhist shrine, and we were invited to sit down and meditate. So I sat near him, and as soon as I sat down, his energy just jumped into me, and it was so massive and so intense that I just left. I tried to sort of stay grounded, and I couldn't. He was so overwhelming. And so I just went into a state of samadhi. And then I could hear everybody getting up and getting ready to leave. And I remember thinking, just let me stay here. Like, this is the one. I thought, I have not been around an energy field like this. And I thought, this is the one I've been looking for. I couldn't get back in my body, so I was having trouble walking. And as we went down the stairs and everyone started to head out to the cars, they said goodbye to Guruji, and then he turned and looked at me, and I was way back, clinging to a rail, trying to stay up. And he walked through the crowd and he walked up to me and he said, "I'll see you later, okay?" And I don't remember if I said anything to him, but I landed back in my body. I thought, this is the one, this is the source. Jai Gurudev.